Hello everyone, this is Denise Saladay. Welcome to Supportability for Clarity 1613. The topic that I'll be covering is Resource Management Perpetual Teams. I will introduce the new team model where we will look at the new team workspace, some capabilities that are available in the new model. We'll look at an overview and how existing data is upgraded. After that, we'll take a look at some modifications that we made to the Resource Workspace for Teams and the Investment Staff module. And then we'll view Teams data in the Staffing Workspace and look at how to manage team investments. So why did we decide to introduce a new team model? We wanted a flexible way to manage teams and allow better visibility into any activity for a team. Customers can manage and track work at either an investment level or the team level. We wanted to provide improved insight of team capacity and demand. And teams will now have capabilities that investments have today, like staff, tasks, assignments, financials, status reporting, risk issue change management, to-dos, action items, and blueprint capabilities. Also, teams will now be available in hierarchies and roadmaps. So first, we'll take a look at the new team model. The one thing that'll help you make the transition from the old team model to the new team model is the way that we think about teams. Previously, teams were really an object under the resource workspace that had a couple of capabilities, but they kind of were off in their own area. But under the new model, you should think of teams as investments because they really have a lot of the same capabilities as investments, and they really are investments. They're just a specific type of investment. As part of the new team model, we have delivered a new team investment workspace. Prior to upgrade, you would create teams under the resource workspace on the Teams tab. And in the new model, you have a separate new menu option called Teams. This is the workspace where you will actually create, edit, and delete your teams. And you can see the rights that I have underneath under each model previously before upgrade and the current model. Now we'll take a look at some of the differences on how you would add resources to teams in both the old model and the new model. So before upgrade, you would do this in the resource workspace on the Teams tab. And you could do that using this grid that I have here on the left. You can add resources button. You'd have a plus quick create, a right click. You would add a default allocation % for the team member, and this is where you would delete or make any edits to whoever is on your team. But before, you could only add labor resources to your team. And under the new model, you actually can staff labor and non-labor resources and roles to your new team investment. But you cannot staff teams on team investments. And you'll do this in the new team workspace that I'm showing here on the right via the staff module. And here in the staff module, this will look just like your investment staff module. You'll be able to add using the Add Staff button. You'll have a plus quick create, a right click action, just like you do for regular investments. And resources will have a default allocation %, but what's new is they'll also be able to have per period allocations on the team. And if you need to make any edits or deletions for people on the team, you would do that right here in the staff module. Now, we're going to take a look at team capabilities both prior to upgrade and after upgrade. Before, you could staff teams to regular investments, and you can assign teams to tasks on regular investments. And you can see from my screenshot here on the left that I've done just that for the Nighthawks team on Digital Banking User Experience project. You could also enter time against teams or any individual on the team when teams are staffed on regular investments. Now, because teams were not investments and do not have the same capabilities before upgrade, they didn't have any capability for blueprint, any modules, you couldn't include them in hierarchies, you couldn't add them to roadmaps, and you couldn't create any custom attributes for them. Under the new model, team investments have the same capabilities that the old teams had in the past, plus they have the capabilities of regular investments. And we'll take a look at those capabilities in this slide and for the next 3 slides. So what you can do now in the new team model is you could enter time directly against the team investment. And there may be some customers who want to do that because maybe they don't want to track their work for specific items and activities, and they don't need to track them at an investment level, and they may just want to track them at a team level. So we wanted to provide that capability. So teams will now have blueprint capabilities. You can see from the team investment blueprint that I have here that they can have properties, modules, business roles, actions, and also a create from template experience. After upgrade, everybody's going to have a new team investment object, and this is the corresponding blueprint that we're creating for default for that team investment object instance. And we're going to go into that object in more detail shortly, but it works the same way for blueprinting as it would for other investment types. Teams will also have the same modules available that regular investments have, such as financial plans, allocations, tasks, assignments, status, risk issues and changes, action items, checklists, and to-dos. These capabilities will allow customers to track activities on the team directly. And if you look at the screenshots here, I've provided an example for planning on the Nighthawks team, tasks, status report, and some risks. Teams have the capability now to be included in hierarchies or roadmaps, and you can either add them in their own separate hierarchies and roadmaps, or you could mix them in with regular investments. The first example I'm showing here is a hierarchy including teams for retail banking, and the bottom screenshot is a roadmap including teamwork. Additionally, you could create custom attributes on team investment objects. And the field level security that we have available today for custom investments will also be available for team investments. Let's review the structure of the old team model and the new team model. Prior to upgrade, we had the team definition object, which was the team, and you could also add resources to the team. And for every team instance, take Nighthawks team, for example, that we've been using thus far. It had a corresponding team resource also called Nighthawks, and that was automatically created. And that is what you would actually use, that Nighthawks resource record, to staff your regular investments. In this model, it was easy to determine and track the work and the cost of the investment, but it really had a flaw in that you really couldn't see and monitor and track what the team was doing, what work they were on. And the resources that were on the team, they just had a default allocation percent. They didn't have any other capabilities for per period metrics. And you really had no insight into all the work that the resource was staffed on. Under the new model, teams are now team investments, and resources are staffed on team investments. And for every instance of a team investment, like Nighthawk's team, for example, we're still creating a team resource that you can staff to regular investments if you decide to do that. You may not want to do that for all of your teamwork. Under the new model, it's still easy to determine and track the cost and the work of an investment, but now you can also easily track the work on the team. And all the resources on a team have the same capabilities that they have on regular investments, such as allocations, etc., and periodic metrics. And now customers can have visibility into all the work, both teamwork and regular investment work for an individual resource. And just to summarize this a little further, under the old team model, you really only had one option to use teams, and that is you could staff them under regular investments, and you could only manage the activity at the investment level. But in the new team model, you have that option too, but you also have a second option where you could, under the team investment directly, you could manage any activity, costs, work, whatever, on the team directly. Or you have another option is you could use a matrix where you could actually combine option 1 and 2 in different areas of your investment portfolio as needed. How is a team investment designated in Clarity? In Classic Studio, there's a new attribute called Team Type Investment that can be checked. And along with that, you'll choose Investment Extension as your object extension, just like you would with creating a new custom investment. If you uncheck the Team Type Investment, then this investment will become a custom investment. And you can continue to check, uncheck, recheck this Team Type Investment flag for this object as long as there are no investment instances in the object. And once there are investment instances, it will become read-only. As part of the upgrade, we're creating a new team investment object for all instances of Clarity, for all customers, whether they're using Teams or not. By default, it will be event enabled, API enabled, and in the include in data warehouse flag will be checked, but customers still have the capability to uncheck it. It's template enabled, and by default, the included in roadmaps and hierarchies are not checked, but they can be enabled by customers. So to recap, a team type investment will have the team type investment attribute checked, and its object's extension will be investment extension. Along with the new team investment object that we're creating after upgrade for all customers, they will also have the capability to create their own new team investment objects. And they can do that under Classic and Administration. And again, what's important is that they check the team type investment and set the object extension to investment extension. Now, by default, the included in hierarchies in the data warehouse is unchecked, but the included in roadmaps is checked, and customers can change that to be whatever they want, just like they can with all of their other objects. Today, we don't have the capability for administrators to convert existing custom investment objects to be team investment objects if instances exist already on their custom investment object. So the only way that they could really convert it is to remove all of the instance data for that custom investment. And they could do that if they marked all investment instances in their custom investment for deletion, ran the delete investments and time reporting periods job to delete all their investment instances in the custom investment, and then they, of course, will be able to then check the team type investment attribute because it won't be read-only anymore since it will not have any instances. Let's take a closer look at the new team investment workspace. Similar to the custom investment workspace, administrators will have the capability where they can create tile groups and reorder their tiles. And you just need the tiles administrator access right to have that capability. Now, immediately after upgrade, all customers will receive the new object team investment, and it will show up at the bottom of this workspace, and there won't be any groupings here. It'll be in an ungrouped section. And I had created an internal group, and I placed the team investment underneath that. And in retail banking, I created a new team object for brokerage and for retail, and I grouped them that way. And just like the custom investment workspace, administrators can control which users have access to which tiles using global security rights. Now that we understand the new team model, let's dig a little deeper and explore what happens to the team data during upgrade. If customers have any existing teams prior to upgrade, those will be converted into the new team investment object that we're creating after upgrade, and it'll be an instance to instance conversion. So each instance of the team definition will become a new instance for the team investment. Now, if they had auto numbering turned on for the old team definition, the team ID attribute, after upgrade, we're still going to retain that auto numbering, but it'll be on the investment ID in the new team investment object. For every team under both the old model and the new model, we had created a corresponding team resource for that. So the Nighthawks team, for example, would exist as a team, and now it'll become a team investment. And it also had a team resource called Nighthawks team, and we're still retaining that resource after upgrade. The only difference is instead of it being linked to the old team definition, it's linked to the new team investment. Prior to upgrade, any resources that were on a team were converting into staff on the new team investment instance that they belong to. And the resources team allocation percent under the old model will be used to populate the new default allocation percent in their staff record on the new team investment object. If customers build any custom content on the existing team data in the data warehouse, we didn't want to cause any upgrade issues for them. So what we did in the data warehouse is any existing team data that we had, we're keeping that in the same tables, and we're also adding any new team data that they create in the same table so that there's not an upgrade impact for them. But they'll need to keep the include in data warehouse attribute checked on the team investment object. We also need to understand how the security rights are migrated during the upgrade. For the team itself, users who had security rights to the team will also have rights to the team investment after upgrade. There's also no change to the team resource. Users had and will still have the same security rights for existing team resources. Now, for the resources on the team, there's something that administrators will need to do here. First, any users who had access to resources on the team will still have access to those resources after upgrade. The only difference is, and what administrators will need to do, is they'll need to add booking rates to any users since they will not be created during this migration. Next, we're going to take a look at some other areas in the product that changed as a result of the transition from the old team model into the new team model, and we'll start with the Resources Workspace. Originally in the Resource Workspace, under the Teams tab, you would add teams here and add resources to the teams as well as the percent allocation that they are on the team. And after the transition, you still have a Teams tab in the Resource Workspace. But this is not where you add teams. You can only view the team resource here. So what you'll have is the capability to look at resource attributes for the team resource. And if you compare the attributes that show in the column panel before and after, you can see that in the column panel in this workspace for teams, you only had attributes for the team definition, and now what we have available are all the resource attributes for the team resource. Users can no longer create or delete teams here. Again, that will be done in the new Teams workspace, but we do allow editing. And you can also edit the resource pull attribute here in this workspace. The views in this workspace will now be shared with the Investment Staff module whenever you add teams via the Add Staff button. And now, when you drill down on a team, what you'll see is the properties screen for that team resource. If you want to view or modify any allocations for resources on a team, you need to navigate to the new Team workspace to do that now. Next, let's take a look at the changes that we made in Classic for the Resources workspace under Resource Management. So under the old team model, we're looking at a resource here, Erin McKay, and she staffed the teams, but you could not see what team she was on in Classic or the percent allocation she was on the team. But in the property screen, you could see team resources, like the Nighthawks team, for example. And in the new model in Classic, notice that for the same resource, Erin McKay, I can see her teams that she's on. One of the teams she's on is the Nighthawks team. And we can also see her default allocation percent to that team, as well as other investments that she's on. And similar to what you could do prior to this transition, users can still view the team resource, Nighthawks, for example, in Resources in Classic under Resource Management. Now, we'll take a look at changes made in the Investment Staff module for this transition. To understand the changes made to the Investment Staff module, we'll take a look at an example for a regular project, Digital Banking User Experience, who has resources and role staffed as well as the Nighthawks team, which we'll focus on. In the old model, if you highlighted a team, like you can see here the Nighthawks team is highlighted, the Details flyout has had a Teams tab, and it also had an expanded grid where you could see the resources on that team. Under the old model, resources under the Teams tab and in the expanded grid for the team were not editable. Because of the transition to the new model for teams, any saved views that they had on the team expanded grid view will be lost after upgrade. After the migration in the Investment Staff module for Digital Banking User Experience, when you highlight the Nighthawks team, you can see instead of having in the Details flyout a Teams tab, we now will have a Staff tab, and it's also not editable. And when you look at the Staff tab in expanded grid mode, that grid is not editable either, like it wasn't in the old model. And any saved views here will be shared with investment staff. Next, we'll take a look at some of the changes that we made in Staffing Workspace for Teams. Because we made other changes to Staffing Workspace, Catherine Ellis is covering that topic for supportability training. And in her presentation, there will be some more examples for staffing on regular investments and team investments. First, we'll take a look at the Allocations Timeline tab and the Allocations by Resource. And we'll look at the Nighthawks team, which is the team resource for that team. Notice that before and after migration, you can still see the same kind of data for the Nighthawks team. You can see that there's that team resource is staffed on a project and on an idea. And you could filter to show data for the team resources only if you added the filter staff type equals team, and that was before and after migration. And whenever you drill down under the resource availability section at the bottom for Nighthawks team, you can see some allocations and availability for that team resource. On those same screens now, if we look at the allocations timeline and we look at the allocations by resources, and instead of looking at the team resource Nighthawks, we're going to instead look at a regular resource, Aaron McKay, whom we know is staffed to both teams and regular investments. Notice that in the old model that any teams that Aaron is staffed to are not appearing in this timeline. So you don't really have a true picture of what her demand is. In the new model, under Allocations by Resource tab, you can see for Aaron McKay that we're showing all of the teams and regular investments whom she's staffed on. And you can see that there is some staff for the team investment as well as the brokerage and the retail team investments that she's also staffed on along with her regular investments. So now we have full visibility into what her true demand is. As we continue to view the allocations timeline in the Staffing Workspace, instead of looking at this data by resource, we're going to look at it allocations by investments. Under the old model, you're not going to see any teams in this view because teams were not investments. But in the new model, under the Allocations by Investment tab, you'll actually see teams. And you can view the team investments by adding a filter for type equals team investment. So if we focus on the data for the Nighthawks team, you can see all of the resources that are staffed on the Nighthawks team, including Aaron McKay. So you have a picture here in this workspace of the team demand as well as any over/under availability and demand for every resource on the team. And the last thing that we'll look at in the Staffing Workspace is the staff grid. And we'll group it by resource. In the old team model, if we focus on the Nighthawks team and you highlight that in the details flyout, you'll notice that there was a teams tab. And whenever you expand that, the grid that you have will show you all of the resources that were on that team. And both in the details flyout and in the expanded grid for the resources, that was non-editable. Now, any saved views that you have for the expanded grid will be lost because those now won't be based on the team definitions that they were before, and you'll see whenever we look at the new team model that it's based on staff now. So after upgrade, if we look at the same information group by resource, and focus in on the Nighthawks team, you'll notice in the details flyout for the Nighthawks team that we no longer have the Teams tab, but we have a Staff tab, which is not editable. Just like in the old model was not editable for the Teams tab. And whenever you expand that, you'll be able to see the expanded grid. And the views here in the expanded team staff grid are shared with investment staff. And they're also, the data is not editable in that view. And you may recognize these changes because we made the same changes for investment staffing as we made here in the staffing workspace for teams. The last thing that we'll look at is managing team investments. The first thing that I'll cover is how do you create team investment instances. Recall earlier in my presentation that you will navigate to the new Teams Workspace menu icon. And once you're in that workspace, there'll be a tile for every team investment object that you have in your system. And just like you would for any custom investments, you would just click on the team investment object where you want to add instances. In the example that I'm showing you here, I clicked on the object called team investment. Similar to regular investments, you can create team investment instances either by clicking on the Create from Template button if it's enabled. You have also a plus Quick Create option that you could use as well. Now the Teams Workspace uses the generic component, so you also have the timeline, board, and the grid view, which we're looking at, that are available along with widgets. The copy action will be available in the grid and timeline based on user access rights. Administrators can delete team investment instances just like they can custom investment instances today. First, you'll need to mark the team investment instances in active, and then you will want to mark it for deletion by selecting the instance and then clicking the Mark for Deletion button. And after that, you'll just run the Delete Investments and Time Reporting Periods job in Classic, which will delete the instances that you've marked on your team investment. Administrators cannot delete team instances that have posted actuals. And whenever the administrator does delete one of these team investment instances, say digital for example, the corresponding team resource will also be deleted. So there'll be a team resource also called digital team, and that will be removed as well. Now we'll take a closer look at how you staff team investments. And you'll do that in the same way that you would staff regular investments. You'll have an Add Staff button, and you could do the Quick Create with the plus, or you can use a right-click action. Remember, this is how users will add resources to a team in the new model. In the old team model, you could only add resources to teams, and in the new model here, you can add labor and non-labor resources and roles to teams. But even though the teams is displaying in the drop-down as an option, if you were to select it, we're going to show you a reactive message that's saying that you're not allowed to add teams to a team investment. One thing to keep in mind, though, is whenever you're adding staff to teams in the new model, they'll be added with the same default allocation percent that applies to regular investments. It's the same behavior there. But in the old model, whenever you add resources to teams, it would have a default allocation percent of 0. In the next two slides, we're going to look at the behavior when staffing teams to regular investments in both the old model and the new team model. In the old team model, teams did not have a resource calendar, and they still do not in the new team model. And we all know that resources on the team do have a calendar. For resources on a team, if you made changes to their individual calendars, specifically change their non-working days and shifts, under the old model, those changes were not reflected in team definitions. But in the new model, they will now be reflected in team investments. If you made those same types of changes, non-work days or shifts, for a resource on the team, they were also not reflected on the team staff allocations for regular investments under the old model. And under the new model, they're still not reflected in the team staff allocations on regular investments. For a resource on a team, if you made a change to their availability rate in Classic under Resource Properties, those changes under the old model were reflected in team staff allocations on regular investments. And likewise, those same types of changes are also reflected in the new team model in the team staff allocations on regular investments. In the new team model, we'll take a look at how changes to staffing on team investments are reflected in regular investments. If you add a resource to a team, remove them from a team, or update their default allocation percent on the team, any of those changes that you make in staffing for the team investments will be reflected in regular investments. Of course, those regular investments where you staff the team resource. But on the team investment, if you make any manual changes to per period allocations, they're not going to be reflected on any regular investments where the team resource is staffed. And to recap from the prior slide, there are some calendar changes that you can make for the resources on a team that won't be reflected in any regular investments where the teams are staffed. And that is changes to the calendar for the resource, like their shifts and non-working days. But those changes will be reflected in the team investment itself. As a result of that, some of the team staff allocations on regular investments, they may not equal the allocations on the team investment, even once you adjust it for the team's allocation percent. Next, I'll demonstrate how you'll use and work with perpetual teams in the new team model. We'll look closer at modifications in the resource workspace in the investment staff module. We'll view teams in the staffing workspace, and we'll also learn how to manage team investments. In 16.1.3, we've created a new team model. And with this new model, we will have a new Teams workspace. You can navigate to the new Teams workspace by clicking on the new Teams icon as follows. In this workspace, every team object that you have in your Clarity environment will become a separate tile. By default, everyone's going to have a new team object created called Team Investment. I had created these two new team objects for demo purposes, and I'll show you how to do that a little later. So tile administrators can come in and configure how they want this workspace to look, and it will work the same way it does today for custom investments and custom master objects. You can go in and add a new group to be whatever you want, and once you create that group, you can delete, you can move things around, you can move this team tile up under this group and move this one down. You can rearrange groups. So let me put this back. And when you're done making these changes in your workspace, you just click Done. There's a new global right that users will need to access this new Teams workspace. And once they have that, they'll see the new icon here. And similar to how custom investments work today, you'll have to grant users access to each tile. There'll be access rights for each team investment that you may have, since you may want some customers to see specific team investments and not all. Next, let's take a look at a team investment instance. And I'll be focusing in for my demonstration today on the Nighthawks team. But one thing that's important to note with this change in model is that we should be thinking of teams now as an investment, because they're going to have investment capabilities, which I will be demonstrating shortly. As you can see here, teams have grid capability, and when you open up the columns, they have attributes similar to what projects have today. They also have a timeline view and a board view. To add resources to your team investment, you will click into the team investment instance and you will go to the staff module. And you can see that I already have resources and roles here staffed to the Nighthawks team. Just like with regular investments, you can add staff in many ways. You could use the Add Staff button, the plus Quick Create, or you can use your right-click action here. So for teams, you can add labor and non-labor resources, labor and non-labor roles, but you cannot add teams to team investments. And I'll show you what will happen if you try to do that. So if we click on a team, we'll select a team, click Add, and when you try to do that, you'll get an error message saying that you can't staff team resources to a team investment. For teams, you will have the regular investment capabilities that staff has in those investments. You can have periodic data, and if you go in and you expand the column panel, you'll notice that we're showing staff attributes here. And you can update specific metrics like your start and finish date for a particular resource on your team. You can change their allocation. Aaron McKay's only staffed to this team at 33%. Next, under Administration, let's go look at the blueprint that we have available for the team investment. You'll have one that's created by default for your new team investment object. And essentially, I just copied that and renamed a custom one called Retail Team Investment. So you could configure your different teams to have different modules, just like you can with custom investments. So we'll go in and edit our blueprint. And these are all the same capabilities that are available on custom investments today. But administrators can configure a property screen just by dragging and dropping attributes into the layout. You could configure specific modules that you want available for each team investment object. You could build business roles. You could have actions. And you can also configure a create from template experience for your teams just by dragging and dropping these fields into your layout. And whenever you're finished with your configuration for your object, you would just click Publish to save your changes. So after we looked at how to configure modules and functionality for your team object, let's go into our team again, Nighthawk's team, and we'll look at the modules that we've just configured. Users can view and edit team attributes on a property screen. They could add financial data for their teams. We've already covered the staff module earlier. You can have tasks that are directly on your teams. Those tasks can have assignments. You could have status and communicate the status of any teamwork that you want to do. You could have risks, issues, and changes, agreements, checklists. You could have to-dos, and action items and conversations, and any other modules that you want to configure for your team that typically regular investments would have. You could also include your team investments either in a separate hierarchy or in a hierarchy with other investments. This hierarchy here created specifically for team investments. You can see underneath retail banking, we have the Nighthawks team as well as other teams. And team investments can be included with other investments in roadmaps, or they could be in their own separate roadmaps. I have an example here of one that's included. You can see the Nighthawks team here with other items. We can see the team investment object that was automatically created in 16.1.3 in Classic Studio under Administration Objects. It's called Team Investment. When the object is created, the Include in Data Warehouse is automatically checked. Include in Roadmaps and Include in Hierarchies will be unchecked for all customers, but I checked it in my demo because I wanted to show you investments in roadmaps and hierarchies. As you can see, the new attribute Team Type Investment is checked, which designates it as a team type investment, and the object extension is Investment Extension. One thing to be aware of in regard to the team type investment attribute is it will be read-only whenever there are existing team investment instances in this object. In order for that attribute to become editable again, you would do something similar to what you would do for custom investments. You would make your team investment instance inactive. You'd have to mark it for deletion, and then you would need to run the delete investments time reporting periods job to delete all of your team investments instances. And when you do that, this attribute will become editable again, and you can check it and recheck it as often as you want. Now, if you uncheck this, it will become a regular custom investment and no longer be a team type investment. Customers can also create their own team investment objects. And you would do that in Classic Studio here under Administration Objects and click New. You'd have to fill out the required fields. And as you can see, we want it to be a master object. It must be API enabled to view it in Modern. You can decide whether or not you want to have it template enabled, and we have to check the investment extension must be set. As soon as you save that, then you will see the attribute for the team type investment. And here's our attribute. You must check this. As you can see, it's unchecked by default, and it's editable, so I can uncheck and check it as many times as I want, as long as I don't have any instances underneath it. So to make this a team type investment, you would check that and just save. And in order for that team investment object to show up in your team's workspace, you'll have to assign the necessary rights. We will now take a look at the resource workspace and view teams. For every team investment instance that you create, Clarity will automatically create a corresponding team resource, which is what we're looking at here on the Teams tab. Users cannot create or delete team resources. They can only make edits, including the resource OBS attribute. You can enter time directly against the team resource or against a resource on the team to capture activity for a team. If we expand the columns panel, you can see resource attributes for your team. Any views here on this tab are shared with the investment staff module when you're adding teams to regular investments via the Add Staff button. You can drill down on your team resource to see the properties for this team. It's important to note that although Clarity has one standard resource blueprint, you could create copies of your blueprint and use different blueprints for teams and regular resources. You can also view teams in Classic under Resources. And if you select a team resource, you can see its properties in Classic as well. For regular resources, users can view teams and regular investments that the resource is staffed on. We will look at Erin McKay. And in order to see what she's staffed on, you click on the Allocations tab. And we're looking at the summary view. But you can see all of Erin's allocations both to regular projects and to team investments. There's also detail available for these allocations, and it will show you the periodic allocations for each staff record that she's on, including teams and regular investments. There are a couple of different ways to capture and track activity for a team. One option is to manage activity directly at the team level and not staff any of your teams to regular investments. Another option is you could staff teams to regular investments and then manage your activity at the investment level only. You could also use either option in different areas of your portfolio. But now we're going to take a look at an example of a project where we have a team staff to a regular investment. So we'll navigate into the Digital Banking User Experience project, the staff module, and you can see for this project that we have roles, regular resources, and we have a team staffed here, the Nighthawks team. It'll show your allocation detail both for your regular resources and your team resources. For each team that is staffed to a regular investment, you can see which resources are on the team in the details flyout. So we'll highlight the Nighthawks team, open up the details flyout, and in the staff module, we'll be able to see which resources are staffed to the Nighthawks team. In the column panel here, we have other staff attributes available that you could display. In the details flyout, this staff tab is not editable. You could also view this in expanded grid mode. And the data here in this grid is not editable either. To edit the resources on a team, add or remove any, you would need to go into the Teams workspace, the staff module, and do it there. Any saved views here for staff are shared with the investment staff. I will demonstrate how you can view teams in the staffing workspace. Catherine Ellis created a more in-depth video on the staffing workspace that covers all of the new capabilities in this workspace, along with some additional team examples. So you should take a look at that video as well. In the Allocations by Resource tab, to show team data, you could build a filter for is team resource equals yes, like I have here. You can see that my teams are listed here. Or you could build another filter for staff type equals team. Either one of those will result in just showing teams in this Workspace tab. For the team, Nighthawks team, you can view all regular investments that are staffed to this team. And we have an example for an idea and a project. On this page, we're displaying the team demand as well as the demand for each one of these projects. The same kind of data is available on the Assignments by Resource tab, only instead of showing allocations, it will show you assignment data, both summary and periodic. The bottom section under Resource Availability will show you team data as well. And for the team resource, you can see the demand as well as the capacity for every month. If you double-click on the team's resource, you can see a grid of the regular investments as well as their period allocations, the availability for the team, and any remaining availability by period. In the Allocations by Resource tab, you can also view your allocations for a regular resource. We're looking at Erin McKay, and we can see here that she's been allocated to projects, team investments, and if you remember, brokerage and retail are a custom team investment object that I created. You can see her demand by period summarized for each one of her allocations. In this way, you'll have better visibility in all the work that Erin McKay is staffed on, both team and regular investments. In the Staffing Workspace on the Allocations by Investment tab, you can also see team investments if you add a filter equals team investment. This view will show you all the regular resources that are staffed to the Nighthawks team investment. You can see we have roles and regular resources including Erin. And you can see the period allocations that she staffed to this team, as well as each resource on the team. And you can get a clear picture for who's over or under allocated. You can see similar data on the Assignments by Investment tab as well, except instead of allocations, it will show you assignments. On the Staff tab, you can view team data for either the team resource or the team investment. Here, we're looking at the Nighthawks team resource, and you can see that it's staffed to these two investments, both a project and an idea. And if you open up the Details flyout for the team, you'll notice there's a Staff tab here. And in the Staff tab, what you're able to see is any resources or roles that are staffed to the Nighthawks team. For the resources on the team, on the Details Flyout Staff tab, they're not editable here in this Works area. You also have expanded grid capability to view the staff data as well for the regular resources and roles that are on the Nighthawks team. And this data is not editable here either. The staff views are saved here and shared with the investment staff views. This demonstration is for upgrading customers who have existing team data in the old team definition object. In the current release 16.13, we are changing to a new team model. So why have we done that? Under the old model, customers only had the option to manage work on teams directly under an investment. And we wanted to expand this capability and allow customers more flexibility to manage and track work now, either under the team investment itself or to continue to manage that under the investment level. Under the new model, you'll have improved insight of the team's capacity and demand. And now in the new model, teams will become investments. And as such, they will have all of the capabilities that investments have, such as staff, tasks, financials, status reporting, risk issues, changes, to-dos, etc. They'll also be available in hierarchies and roadmaps. Under the old model, users would create teams in the Resource Workspace on the Teams tab. After upgrade, every one of these teams will be migrated to the new team investment object, which we will be creating after upgrade. As you can see here, every team, including Nighthawks, will be migrated into this team object as an instance. Under the old model, you would add teams here, and you would add resources to your team in the Resource Workspace. In the new model, once you click into your team investment instance, Nighthawks team here in this example, you will add your resources to your teams via the staff module for that team investment instance. As part of the migration, any resources that you had staffed to your old team definition objects will be migrated to staff under the new model. I have a couple of extra here that I've created just to demonstrate that under the new model you can also staff roles and non-labor resources. Under the old model you could only add labor resources. Whatever allocation you had for your resource on the team, like Aaron McKay will look at, is going to be migrated as staff at the same default allocation %. Under both the old model and the new model, for every team instance you created, Nighthawks for example, there was a corresponding team resource, also called Nighthawks team, created by Clarity. The same thing is going to happen in the new model. The only difference is we're changing the reference in the new model of where these team resources point to. Before they would point to the team definition object, and now they'll point to your team investment. In the Resource Workspace in the old model, these were team definition instances. They are not the team resource. You would have to go to Classic if you wanted to see the team resource. And you can tell this when you go look at the column panel, and you can see that the only attributes available here are those that are on the team definition object. After upgrade, in the same place, under the Resources Workspace Teams tab, you still have your teams here. The only difference is now, instead of showing the team definition object instance, we're now showing the team resource. And you can tell that if you expand the columns panel, you can see resource attributes here for each team resource. Under the old model, it was this corresponding team resource that you were staffing to regular investments. Under the new model, you can still do that and use the corresponding team resource and staff it to regular investments as well. So nothing has changed from that perspective. We are just expanding the capability. So instead of being limited to tracking all of your teamwork under an investment, we're now allowing you to track all of your teamwork under the team directly. And you could also use a matrix of each of those options in different areas in your portfolio. And plus, all of your teams after upgrade have all of the capabilities that regular investments have. In the data warehouse, any existing team definition data that you had is retained, and if you add any new data after migration, it'll be captured in the same data warehouse tables that it was previously, unless the administrator unchecks the Include in the Data Warehouse attribute on the Team Investment object. Prior to migration, if you had auto numbering set up on your Team ID, we will retain this auto numbering and instead use it on the Investment ID in the new Team Investment object. Let's spend a moment talking about what happens to security after the migration. On the teams, users will have the same security rights to the team investment that they had for teams prior to upgrade. For the corresponding team resource that Clarity automatically creates when you create a team, there's no change after migration because users who had access to those team resources will still have access after upgrade since they're still the same team resources. For the resources on the team, users will already have security rights for all of the resources on a team, but administrators, after migration, they will need to add booking rights to users since they will not be created as part of this team migration or the upgrade. And by booking rights, I mean the capability to add staff. Next, we're going to take a look to a change to the staff module for regular investments as part of this migration. As you can see, I'm in a regular project, digital banking user experience, and I have a team staffed, the team resource staffed to this investment called Nighthawk's team. When you highlight that and you go into the details flyout under the old model, there was a tab called Team, and in here it would show you the resources on the team, and there weren't that many attributes here available for a resource. Under the new model, after upgrade, in the same project, digital banking user experience, same team, Nighthawk's team, in the details flyout, instead of having a tab called Teams, it's now called Staff, because instead of it being just a list of resources, it's now all of the staffing attributes. And if you expand the column for that, you can see that you have all of the staffing attributes that are available for regular investments too. And in the new model, any saved views that you have for staff here are shared with your team investment staff views. We made this same change in the staffing workspace. Under the old model, when you highlight a team in the staff grid, we had the team tab and it would show you a list of the resources on the team. And there weren't all of the resource properties that you would normally have. In the new model, in staffing, on the staff tab, when you highlight a team, instead of having a team tab, you have a staff tab, and it'll show you the resources that are staffed to your team. And when you expand here, you'll see that you have the regular staff attributes that would normally be available in staffing. And this concludes the supportability training for Perpetual teams. Thank you.